Hi guys, so we've been doing our research about the artist Edward Bawden, specifically looking at this kind of illustrative architectural work. Now, you have done the keyword exercise, and on your pieces of paper, PowerPoints, you will have thoughts recorded. Now, you can obviously add to them. This is a subject that builds, so we can add to things. Now, let's look at them. We've got flat colour here, we've got dramatic light there, and darker here, bit of shadow. We can see some perspective on the side of this building, but there's something quite flat and pictorial about it. It doesn't look like reality. Look at the way he's handled the bricks on here, and the stones are kind of in a pattern-based format. The sky is descriptive of clouds, however, that does not look like a sky, we know, so it's an illustrative style. I'll move to the next sheet. These were the examples that we gave you, and you've hopefully looked at more of your own while you've been researching. So I won't add too much, but I'm going to comment on that water, actually quite stylised again. So stylised, illustrative are words I would use. He's a printmaker, and so is the next artist we're going to show you. Ed Clues is a British and contemporary artist, so you can find his work online. He's active at present. Now, I would say there is a similarity in style between these two artists. I would say that Clues has looked at Bawden's work along the way, and there has been some kind of influence. I can see other influences in this work too. This one is face on. I've given you some notes on the worksheet, my observations, and you can have a look at those and see what you think as you're developing your own analysis. There's some pattern that we've seen similar to some of the marks I showed you in the first image. Let me pull that one back. I'd say this is more controlled. Look at this interesting transition in the sky between a light area and a dark area through this pattern section. This is face on to us, and yet these buildings are a 3/4 view. If I pick up a cube and hold it in front of me, you can see what I mean about a face on elevation versus a 3/4 view where you can see multiple faces. Now, I would say the difference between these two artists, a significant difference, is this very dramatic use of light. These look like a torch or a bright light has been shone directionally onto this plane of the building, this plane of the building, that plane of the building. And even in this one where we're seeing a flat elevation, there is this very dramatic shadow. So if I take my cube and I've got a very strong light on my desk, I'm just going to move it across. Watch the dark face of the cube will look darker, and as I move the light around, it alters it. So that's how we can create this effect. We can heighten and exaggerate this dark face, and it creates depth. I've also commented on here how this window looks like there's a light on inside, no curtains, and you can see this light shining from it, so it stands out against the dark face. I quite like this perspective. I like these trees as well that he uses in his work. They kind of fill space, quite architectural in their style. And look at this one, there's a white one and a black one, and again see how he has adjusted the tone around it to make them stand out. It looks a very wet and cold day, but we are going on a little trip to a building quite familiar, even though we are working remotely. Guys, as you know, I rarely turn the camera on myself, but I wanted to bring you somewhere and show you that you have all seen the work of Edward Bawden. Here we are. We are in the cloister corridor outside the staff common room. Look where we are. Mr. Magnol is heading home over there. And on the wall behind me, you can see a picture that may be familiar to you. Here we have it, our very own Edward Bawden. It's a 1956 lino print called Town Hall Yard. Now I'm going to zoom in. The flash on my camera has kicked in, but let's look closely. So we have some solid fill areas and some white cutaway areas, which are a little bit like the windows we have drawn if you've done the Amsterdam building model. Look at these little textures into this one. My favourite bit by far, I'm going to zoom back out here. Look at the wheels on this bike, these concentric circles suggesting motion. Now if we look into the building at the back, look, we've got a layered, coming close, we've got a layered texture over the black print. Let's look at the trees, the handling of the bark. It's quite pattern based. Let's zoom out and see the full image. There we go. We have been on a trip to see an original artwork. So here we have the image we know from the corridor at school of Edward Bawden, and I have an Ed Clues image at the top. I also have a picture of a window from the quad. Let's look at the common subject matter. So the subject matter is what is within the picture. We've got buildings, trees, some sort of sun or moon, similar things going on in here, building, trees and the moon. Now you could say there's some depth to this one, but equally there is some depth into this one. These buildings are further away from these in the foreground, so there is some distance, although it is slightly shorter. These ones are more stylized in its use of pattern, whereas this is more descriptive. If we look at the window here, it's quite crude in its handling versus the control that we see in this one, but there are common elements to both. If we now look at the window from the quad, I've taken a photograph, I've desaturated it, I've edited it on my phone rather than on anything fancier, and you can see the very clear white window frame. Now that's what I'm making you look at in this connection between the window frames and the type of drawing we might need to do. We did something similar if you did this task where we made the three-dimensional model, and if you did this, we drew the window frame in and then filled in the negative space of the windows. So that's something to think about as we move forward. So to structure our development based on the artist's work, we are going to look at Manchester Grammar School because it is familiar to us, and we can bring that past knowledge into our development work. I've made some reference material here for us to use in the drawing stage, but let's have a look around the building. We are, guys, in the quad. We're looking at the front door to the building. Look at the arched window above the door. We're going to look upwards now, symmetry, and look up to the bell tower. There is actually a bell in there and the weather vane. We'll spin round in the quad and we will look up to the clock tower. Again, look at the symmetry of the design. You can see the arch across the top. The modern windows that have been replaced in art look quite smart, but in the same style. We're going to go across to Hugh Oldham and look at the interesting features we know and are familiar to us. But let's look at things that we might not notice quite as often. So above the door to the High Master's corridor, to what was formerly known as the Classics corridor, we can see those interesting sort of oval architectural features into the brickwork. If I turn around and I look at this window here, you see how the frame appears white and the window pane itself looks dark, like a counter change. We'll look for that in the work of our artists. Just on the drive, looking at the front of the building, you can obviously see the clock tower again. I can see a slight different angle this time. I can see part of the side, but also think about the school badge. Now, one thing I think is really interesting and could become a feature of our work is the school arch, because we're at the front, but we're looking in, and the sense of cutting something away and revealing something inside might be quite interesting. I'm just walking towards the arch now. As you can see, there's cars around us, the bell's just gone, and parents of pupils that are on site are around. Look at these archways within the arch, lots of archways. So you might consider the exterior and the interior. You might even consider the interior of the building and what the building is about and why we are here. Hi guys, what I have here is the worksheet with images from Manchester Grammar School. I took these the other day for you, and I've got a piece of paper, and the first thing I'm going to do is just start drawing sections. No real design to this. You could draw them about the same scale if you print them off, or if you've got your surface in front of you, you can put the screen beside where you're working and just start some sketching. So I'm just drawing quite lightly in the underdrawing. Because I'm drawing to scale, I can roughly take some measurements off here and think about the ratio of different areas. So it's a light underdrawing. The door's a little bit wider, isn't it? One, two, three, 4, 5, 6, about 6 steps. Handrail starts about there. So what you can see is just the basics of the drawing coming together. Now I could add more and more detail as I go along, and I will do as my work develops, but what I want to show you first of all is just about sketching different sections No real design, just becoming familiar with the shapes. So here I've got a bit of the arch, thinking about the height and the width ratio, the type of arc we have there. If I want a construction line, like a line across here, I might pop it in. And because I'm at an angle to the arch, I can see the perspective of this coming up a little bit as it goes back into the quad. And I can see the smaller arch at the back, which I might put about there. Make that a bit more vertical. Kind of line as it comes in. I can see these small arches here. That one looks smaller than the one that's closer to us. So you can see me just becoming familiar with the building through drawing. So sometimes drawing is just to help us cement our knowledge a little bit. And this is the first stage of this drawing. I'm not asking you to completely resolve it. I want to see lots of drawing as you start to become familiar. Now what's beginning to happen here is there's going to be an overlap between these two sections. If I continue, I might just allow that to occur. Looking at how tall I want that arch. So this page could become quite interesting as the drawing develops. I'm not going to pop the benches on. I might leave that section just like that. Now, can you add shading into it? Yes, you can, but I'm more concerned with you getting shape down and becoming more confident. I'm going to bring the worksheet over a little bit because I fancy doing something different now. I'm going to focus on this owl, quite a difficult shape. I'm going to start with the eye section. He looks like he's had a lot of paint in him over the years, and so he's kind of lost a bit of his definition. And the other eye looks like it's receding away. The top of the head's coming up and across. It's like his owly ear up there, coming down here. Wings coming out and down. I need to think about how deep it goes. So I might want to come back onto its chest. Bit of shade in there. The wing comes out. See a bit of shadow in there. Looking at that shape where the shadow is. You see how I'm sort of working it out through sketchy marks. I'm just getting in the drawing zone. When we haven't been drawing for a while, sometimes takes us a little bit of time to just get back into the place and get confident again. And if you're not feeling very confident with drawing, sitting tentatively thinking about it and panicking over every mark isn't the way to resolve it. It's through activity and see what happens. Using Teams to post and share and ask your teacher for tips as you go. Obviously you need to be doing something so we can give you advice upon your work, not just say I don't know how to do it. So I'm adding a bit of tone and detail and texture into there and thinking about it a bit more. So I might go on to the bell tower now. I'm just going to try and move everything around so you can see it. It's very, very small in this picture, but I can just look at the shape. It's got a shallow shape to the roof. It is an isosceles triangle, but a very shallow one. That's almost like a square, that section. The arch is about that in ratio. And I can't see the bell, but I might look for some other reference pictures later of a bell tower. And we can see the weather vane, which has this sort of scary-like, master-like character. And a little figure down here. So hopefully you understand the purpose of this drawing is just to get you back in the zone. And some of these drawings then you can work up to another level. So guys, I continued to draw for about another half an hour or so, and you're beginning to see more elements coming into it and little bits of detail. Notice I'm not finishing everything. I'm trying out sections. This brickwork I've tried up here wasn't particularly successful, but I might look at some brickwork and just incorporate some somewhere else. So it isn't a complete section, it is a development, trying things out. So here I'm just trying out some little brick textures. I'm looking quite close at some of my reference material and noticing the variety of tone in the bricks, and a little bit like the windows that we've drawn before. If you've done the Amsterdam house, this exercise, you will remember that we draw in the pencil outline and then work the brick section, leaving the cement or mortar around it. So see here how I'm creating like little bricks that are darker than the cement around it. I might just let this overlap a little bit onto the bottom where the owl is, because that's an unresolved section. Obviously I'm not going to draw one over Hugh Oldham's face because I'm in the midst of trying to work that out a little bit. So in effect you're just drawing and combining and seeing what happens. Now this is a bit different from the artist's work, but we're going to take these drawings into the next stage and development. So don't worry about it pictorially not making a lot of sense at this stage. I just want you to draw from reference material. So guys, this brings us to the end of this first video, and this was a standalone task, getting us back into drawing, becoming accurate, looking at shape and proportion, trying things out. In the next videos I'm going to show you some development options. One I've started working on already, and this one I'm going to do as a pen drawing, and then one that I'll make into a 3-dimensional model. So you can watch those videos and you can pick your best option and give it a go.